Good morning, businesses, and thank you all for joining us again for another segment of Business Inclusion and Diversity Initiatives. Today, we are in for a treat. We are hosting our very first Design Symposium. The city of Miramar, if in case you are not aware, have a myriad of design projects that are going to be released in the future. And one of the things that we wanted to do was provide smaller minority and disadvantaged businesses and businesses at large in our Dade, Broward, and um, Palm Beach counties an opportunity to come on and get some skill building tips and tools that you can consider if, in fact, you are a design firm, if you're looking to expand your business repertoire to include more design. And we have experts on board that are going to be assisting you in that regard. Now, I am Karen Hollis. I am the individual with whom the City of Miramar has entrusted to implement business inclusion and diversity. We have a system of tools and operations in place to ensure that we are operating and implementing the disparity study recommendations to ensure smaller minority and disadvantaged businesses an opportunity for more inclusion with the City of Miramar. Next slide. Let us begin. Now, the goals and objectives of BID, as we refer to it, is to uphold the higher standards of inclusion, equal opportunity, and non-discriminatory practices by extending assistance to all firms that desire to do business with the city. BID designs change management strategies to educate, connect, and grow local and minority businesses. It ensures that businesses are afforded access to participate in the city's procurement process, and BID strives diligently to eradicate discriminatory barriers identified in the disparity study by developing programs to advance the vision and the goals of the city of Miramar. Next slide, please. Now, a little bit about what it is that we do. We literally provide these small minority and disadvantaged businesses the opportunity to participate in all aspects of city contracting and purchasing programs because we understand that the number one reason that small businesses are in business is to secure and to get work and to be profitable. And what we try to do is to prohibit discrimination against any person or business that pursues these opportunities to do work for the city of Miramar. We develop a myriad of tools designed to work together as parts of an interconnecting network of possibilities that will help small businesses grow and develop. We do that by implementing programs and services through BID and in order to foster more inclusion and diversity on city projects. Next slide, please. Now, here are some of the business support systems that are currently in place. We have a technical software that was purchased. It's literally designed as a diversity software. And what it's designed to do is assist primes and subconsultants in doing their monitoring and compliance reporting electronically, literally on a digital platform. And that will ensure more efficiency in the terms of the data that's being collected, as well as having an opportunity for the sub-consultants to have a clear understanding of what it is that the prime is reporting to the city of Miramar in terms of payments and things of that nature. We try to educate through Bid Academy by fostering job creation through and understanding the critical need to have a more educated workforce. And BID, this is one of those segments where in which we offer webinars and skill building exercises and sessions that are designed to help businesses grow. And we also have and understand the economics. So through BID Fit, which is another system that's in place, there are several webinars that have been hosted throughout the last couple of years. And literally in the BID Fit sessions, we have experts that partner with BID to ensure that smaller businesses know several key initiatives, how to effectively respond to procurement solicitations, have a better understanding of what various solicitations, invitation for bid, requests for qualifications, requests to produce all of these RFPs, ITB, and a lot of the smaller businesses are not as savvy and adapt to understand the full understanding of what those procurement acronyms mean. And so we have sessions and we allow experts to come in and assist us in ensuring that businesses are not only more educated in the procurement process, but are given tools and tips on how they too can be successful. We've even used successful small businesses that are have a track record of successfully securing procurement and construction projects. And we allow those success stories and businesses to come on board to also give their colleagues additional tips and tools as to how they too can be successful. And we do that through something that's called a Bid Fit series. Regulatory management, the BID Act, the City of Miramar took a step further after the disparity study and wanting to ensure that the bid program continues to progress. In April of 2021, which we'll learn, we extended through the BID Act, and you'll hear more information about that in a minute. And last but definitely not least, the social aspect, BID Connect. People do business with people they know. That does not change. And understanding that very critical element, one of the things that we do is try to not only partner with smaller businesses that come to the city and desire to do business with the city, we first ensure that they have an ability to speak directly to directors of the departments and things of that nature, and those that are doing the purchasing, especially those purchasing that takes place outside of the procurement department, which is those small purchases. So we have strategy sessions in place where in which we connect them internally and externally. We have webinars and we have big connect sessions where in which we allow them to get to know our community stakeholders that also have the same types of business development initiatives being offered to help small minority and disadvantaged businesses grow. More importantly, our community stakeholders that have contracting opportunities that they can make available to those businesses that are designed to expand and grow with additional contracting opportunities. Because the truth of the matter is, although every business desires to do business with the city of Miramar, there are no guarantees that once you engage in the procurement process, that you will in fact be successful. So it's imperative for us to afford the businesses with as many opportunities as we can to be able to find ways in which they can secure contracting opportunities. And we have seen through the connecting them through Bid Connect with community stakeholders, they have also been successful. And it's just another tool in place to assist. Next slide, please. So there are several services that BID offer. Outreach. We attend conferences. We attend various events that are being offered by those community stakeholders that I spoke about, where in which it allows us an opportunity to get to know and to identify the businesses that the disparity study concluded that we as a city need to do a better job of not only identifying, but then securing and having them to come back to become registered vendors with the city to ensure that they are aware of all of the opportunities and things that are being made available at the city of Miramar. The most critical way in which I do that is I go and the team of between our economic development and revitalization outreach team, we often go out into the community in a myriad of ways to ensure that the businesses are aware of all of the things that the city is making available, as well as letting them know and giving them an opportunity to come and position themselves to be successful with the tools we have in place. We know that having a social impact is when we can give the businesses access, as I alluded to earlier. And one of the ways that we can do that is to make sure that the department directors are able to meet with these small businesses. When I first came on, I had these small business empowerment meetings for that equal access mentioned at the bottom. And we wanted to make sure that we had a better understanding exactly what the small businesses themselves believe that they need in order to grow. We as a city do not preclude to understand fully what every business believes that they desire to grow. And so we have opened our doors. We give them access to come in and communicate to us all levels of leadership. And the city, I am very proud to say that the city of Miramar's leadership have an open door policy. All of the commissioners, from everyone from the mayor, the vice mayor, and the commissioners, constantly are meeting with businesses, not only as we engage in these outreach activities and the community activities that take place throughout the city and the business initiatives that we foster throughout the city of Miramar, but also allowing the businesses to come in and meet with us and to share any challenges that they're engaging with. We also connect them with department directors through the social impact. We have policies and procedures that we are putting in place to ensure that we have a non-discriminatory platform that will ensure that once they try to engage, there are no barriers, identifiable barriers that we have learned through the disparity study that we are not trying to address and, more importantly, eradicate. Reporting. Data management is a recommendation that the disparity study ensured that we as a city need to do a better job in. And so we definitely try to track the minority participation reporting on various commission items that are coming up. I attend, I try to identify and ensure that we see if and when minority and small businesses can have participation opportunities with every project that is being advanced through the city. Training to empower. This session today is the perfect example of the extent to which we are trying to afford training opportunities to and skill building opportunities to ensure businesses growth initiatives. Stakeholder collaborations, I spoke to it a little bit earlier, where in which we not only try to do everything ourselves, we have some amazing community stakeholders that are also engaged in trying to help small businesses grow, and they have just as equipped programs in place and services in place and resources in place where in which they are giving tools as well to help businesses grow. And we as a city partner with various of these organizations, and we make that information available to you as a small businesses so that you can have just another tool in your belt to grow your business. And we understand that all of these services and systems are in place so that we can have an economic impact and ensure more inclusion, understanding that the number one reason that businesses are in the business is to make money and to be able to continue to sustain themselves, especially in the midst of these challenging times that we're all currently experiencing. Next slide, please. And so some of the things that, as an extension to the disparity study, that was as of April 2021, which I alluded to earlier, the City Commission added the BID Act to the City Code. And this act has transitioned the city from a more race neutral approach to inclusion and diversity to a more race conscious approach to ensuring inclusion. And it is allowing us to implement the BID Act, and 3 additional programs, a myriad of programs, are looking to be implemented from the Minority Small Business Enterprise Program, Minority Women Business Enterprise Program, the Local Micro Business Program. These are just some of the types of programs that we are now exploring to see for the implementation and the advancement of more inclusion. We're also exploring having a small business construction advisory committee and/or board that will assist and come in and partner with us. These are, again, these systems that are made up of these advisory boards, the minority programs, the MBE programs, the outreach initiatives, and the recommendations that were given to us by the disparity study, all are in place so that we can continue to do and partner with you as a business owner to help you grow your business. Next slide, please. And so the BID Act, after the conclusion of the BID Act, we didn't just have language, and we're not just working on developing policies and procedures without actual action items. Here are 2 of those particular action items that we've implemented since the passing of the BID Act. One of the things that we now do as a city is we require contractors that secure contracting opportunities to have what we call a contractor job fair. where in which they are contractually obligated to identify available contracting opportunities that are going to be made available through the particular project that they have been successful in winning from the city, and they are going to identify opportunities for smaller businesses to be able to partner with them. First and foremost, the majority of the projects that are being released by the city of Miramar are working diligently to ensure that they have minority participation goals. And one of the ways in which those prime contractors are going to be able to meet those contractually obligated participation goals is by identifying ready, willing, and able minority small businesses, those that are certified, and we also implement a local participation goal as well. And those businesses that are local, meaning right domiciled within the city of Miramar, according to the procurement code's definition of local. And we allow them an opportunity to be able to be used by the prime contractor to meet those goals. The contractor job fair is a perfect platform where in which we develop a safe space or create a space to afford those connections and easier ability to take place. Also, we have these upcoming contracting opportunities where in which every quarter, literally, we host a webinar to go over and allow businesses to pre-examine scopes of work of projects that will soon be released by the procurement department. One of the things that the disparity study said that we should do as a city is to provide the smaller, micro, and disadvantaged businesses with an opportunity to get the information in advance, understanding that larger businesses and prime contractors have a myriad of individuals at their disposal, and they are able, with a big team, to more adequately be able to respond once a solicitation project is released through the procurement department that says you have a 28-day response time or whatever number of days response time. The study concluded that smaller businesses will probably be in a better position to be more successful in securing these procurement solicitation releases if in fact they had an opportunity in advance to be able to review some of the information. And one of the tools and action items that we put in place as a direct result of businesses coming and communicating to leadership their desire and what it is and how we can best assist them in positioning themselves to be more successful with the city of Miramar. And in response to that, those businesses requests, we've implemented these webinars. We have quarterly where directors, project managers, prime contractors are all on board. We showcase upcoming projects for the quarter that have not yet been released and will be released. And then those small businesses are then afforded an opportunity to identify if they have the qualifications that are necessary to be able to work on a project. They're also, more importantly, able to identify a place within that scope of work that they can then attend a pre-bid meeting and say, have a more intelligent and productive conversation with a prime contractor, wherein they can say, I've reviewed the scope of work on this project, and I see that you are looking for this type of plumber, this HVAC component, this what have you. I and my firm have those skills and tools. I am a certified contractor with Broward County. I have a CBE certification. I see that the contract is going to have a 15 or 20% or 5% local. Here is how I can be of value to you, prime contractor, if and when you decide to respond to this solicitation. And so what we're doing with these systems and support systems, again, is trying to go above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that small, minority, and disadvantaged businesses have a better opportunity to have inclusion on construction contracts and all procurement opportunities and solicitations being released by the city of Miramar. Next slide, please. Another thing that we do, those businesses, we try to make sure businesses understand that the first and only the most important way to position yourself to do business with the city of Miramar is through vendor registration. Yes, we have an open door policy. Yes, every director will meet with you. I will meet with you. City leaders will meet with you, our mayors, vice mayor. However, we need you to be registered as a vendor with the city of Miramar because vendor registration is, in fact, the first step to doing business with the city of Miramar. And so we constantly, through Business Pulse and through the various mediums that the city of Miramar utilizes to inform and educate small businesses, local businesses, all businesses that desire to do work with the city of Miramar. Here is an example of the flyer that is regularly posted on all social mediums and marketing atmospheres throughout the city to ensure that businesses are afforded the understanding of vendor and the importance of vendor registration. We also want them to know and check out the current bid opportunities, not just those things that are being advanced through the capital improvement program, CIP, which is those quarterly programs and sessions that we offer through bid. We want you to know and have an opportunity as a business to be able at any time that you go onto the city's portal to see and check out current bid opportunities. And that's the flyer that you see that's also being showcased because it's one of those that we try to make available to ensure that businesses have optimal opportunity to be able to access city contracting opportunities. Next slide, please. And so we have, through the business inclusion initiatives, a calendar that we have. And this year's 2022 calendar is hosting about community stakeholder trainings. We've gone throughout the year and we're now in June, concluding June. We've had 6 webinars where we partner with community stakeholders. We post flyers every month. And in addition to that, these monthly webinars, we have flyers that are made, and we do things to try to make sure that we, again, following the recommendations of the disparity study, giving those small businesses advanced notifications. We respect and understand how you taking time out of your business, even to attend these webinars. We do not take your dedication for granted. And we want to ensure that when you take time away from running your business, we provide you with ample opportunity and as much information as we can and advance notifications so that you can prepare in advance. You can schedule your calendars. And those are the things that we do through the calendar. Next slide, please. So for each event that we present, we do calendars like the flyers, I mean. So today's design symposium, that was a flyer that was developed. And so we developed flyers for each and every opportunity and each and every event that's hosted on the bid calendar. We are having the design symposium today, and most of you are attending because you received a flyer, I presume and hope. And then we will be, as of the month of July, you perhaps were not able to zoom in on the information that was in that July scope, but we will be having a health and wellness extravaganza on Thursday, July 14th. And so this is a flyer that we have for all of the participants. When I send them, thank you for joining us. We will definitely be extending the calendar so that you can review and have an at a glance view of everything that we will be showcasing for the remainder of the year. We will also provide the next flyer, the flyer for the upcoming event, which will be Thursday, July 14th. That will actually be our first in-person event since COVID, where we've afforded and expanded an opportunity through webinars, and that's been a gracious thing for us, trying to protect ourselves. But now that most of the COVID protocol have been relaxed, most people are getting vaccinated, we too at BID will be returning to in-person sessions, the first of which will take place on Thursday, July 14th, and I will definitely be giving you a flyer after this webinar. Next slide, please. And so the most important part of understanding how to ensure economic impact and for us to determine and ascertain whether or not the initiatives and the systems and the tools and the tips and all of the things that we're doing are working is through data. The data, pre-study data between the period of 2011 and 2016 concluded that the city of Miramar only afforded 7.43% participation for small minority and disadvantaged businesses. Post-study data has concluded that between the period of 2007 to 2020, that we have increased to 29.2% minority participation. And those are the measurements and that ensures us that the tools and the systems and the support systems that we're putting in place is in fact assisting businesses in growing. Next slide, please. Okay, we have, and I will be providing each and every one of you with an outline for all of the upcoming initiatives that will be for the remainder of the year for the bid program. I will be sending this. All you will have to do is click on the QR code and you can register for all of the events that will be coming up for bid thereafter. So that's an overview of bid. So now we will be able, thank you so much, Paul. We are now, I'm going to try to share my screen so that you guys can get an overview and a better understanding of exactly what it is that we are here to talk about today. Today's session I'm most excited about. We have experts in place that are going to, let me make sure I'm sharing. Yes, Paul, you can see my screen, sir? So today we have a design symposium in place. And with this design symposium, we have some experts that have agreed to join us. The agenda for today, I did the welcome and I did the bid overview. And now the time has come. We are going to be introducing you to Mr. Salvador Zuniga. He is the city engineer, and he is going to be providing information for us for the next 30-40 minutes about an engineering overview, prior private sector engagements, upcoming city design, roadway infrastructure projects, federal, state, and county regulations. And then after that, we're going to have Mr. Daryl Johnson, which is our construction administrator. He is going to provide an overview of city control funded design projects. And I believe Mr. Johnson, I'm so excited, has come prepared to speak about a particular project that will be released soon within the city of Miramar. And then last but definitely not least, we are happy to introduce Mr. Timothy Wheat of Pinnacle, who will be then joining us between approximately 10:30 and 11:30. And he's going to be educating about the requirements for designers. He's going to provide an overview of design goals for affordable housing. He's going to go over parameters for designers on affordable housing. And then he's going to talk a little bit about public-private partnerships, that P3 overview. We definitely, as always, are going to have time for Q&A at the end of the session, and then we will close out. All right, without further ado, we will start. Sal, I will start with you, sir. If you can start with the engineering overview. Sal, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hollis. My name is Salvador Zuniga. I am the city engineer. So I will just be giving a brief overview of engineering, our role here in the city. I won't spend too much time in this slide. This is mostly a generic slide, but this just highlights some of the implementation development process. You might see sometimes we might have the need for feasibility studies depending on the type of project that we're doing. So these things, they can change and the requirements might differ depending on the type of project that we have a need for. So I will just move to the next slide.
Talk a little bit about private sector.
Yes, private sector. There's two sides to private sector. First, the city on the city side, city control side, we do engage the private sector to provide professional design consulting services. The city has a library of consultants, which was recently adopted for, let's say, construction projects less than $4 million. We have a library with different categories that we can go and select a consultant to provide architectural or engineering services. These are on an as-needed basis based on our capital improvement program or any other special projects that gets assigned to the city to undertake. And these are city control projects. So that's how we engage the private sector of contracting the private design firms, either architectural or engineering. When it comes to public private partnership, it's a little bit different because the private entity has most of the control of the procurement of the consultants. And we have Team Wheat from Pinnacle, which he'll speak a little bit more on this, which is exactly what a perfect example of a P3 or a public-private partnership. So, on to the next slide. So when so any every project, depending, our first process is to identify what project we're doing, the type of project, and what requirements will that project have, and what under jurisdiction or regulatory agencies will fall under. So every project that we seek out services for design, we'll try to establish and let you know, are there federal requirements, which is common when you have federal funding. Any state requirements, obviously for buildings, South Florida is regulated by the Florida Building Code. Any county requirements, if they're roadway projects or environmental issues. So all those aspects will be outlined whenever we seek out solicitations for services and what the project will entail and will require. The city also has a land development code, which needs to be followed for any land development in the city, as far as buildings, zoning. And we do have our director of building and planning and zoning online. So if there's any specific questions related to that, you can certainly answer during the Q&A sessions. Slide. So I'm just gonna move forward to projects that I mean, what you might be interested in, and these are just some projects that we have upcoming under my division. This first project, it's called Miramar Bike and Pedestrian Mobility Improvements. The design estimate, and this is just for design services, is about $500,000. The project itself, the construction estimate, is about $4 million. We anticipate to advertise this project in fiscal year 23. And the scope of work for this project, it includes pedestrian bike facilities and other complete street elements. And this is along along three different segments. This is along 148th Avenue, along Miramar Parkway, and along Southwest 68th Avenue. This project, it's federally funded. So this project is being delivered through, for those of you that are familiar with the FDOT's local agency program, otherwise known as LAP. So we have to meet several requirements as it comes to LAP, the way we handle the funding and the reporting throughout the project. So when we seek out services for a project like this, obviously we want to engage a consultant that is familiar and has experience with LAP projects. It will go. This project, it's also the same. It will be a LAP project, and this is funded through a grant that's called Safe Route to School. The estimated design cost is $250,000, and we also anticipate to advertise this seeking consulting services in fiscal year 23. Scope of work, it's the main component is constructing new sidewalks. It's about 12,000 linear feet of sidewalks, and then there is some secondary components like regrading swales and some little side work. But the main component is a sidewalk, and this is along various streets in the vicinity of the A.C. Perry K through 8 school, which is located at 6850 Southwest 34th Street. And again, this will be a lab funded project, which will have to meet a lot of the federal guidelines and lab requirements. So again, we look for consulting design services with experience with this program. This next project, it's for those of you that are familiar with the municipal map Broward, otherwise known as surtax. This is the Broward County surtax program that was adopted in 2018. The funds roadway transportation projects throughout the county, throughout Broward County. We do have a project that we just executed an interlocal agreement with the county for design services, and this is the Pembroke Road buffer bike lane from Palm Avenue to Douglas. This project, the estimate for the design services that we have been awarded by the county, it's up to $252,000. And we anticipate, as I mentioned, we just executed the interlocal agreement, which will give, we're waiting for the executed agreement to be sent back to us by the county. Once we get it back, we get the green light to be able to advertise this project and put it on the street. So we're anticipated towards the end of this year to put it out. The county assigns any CBE goal so to every surtax funded project, so we don't have control of the CBE goal assignment. The county does. This project again is for design services only. Construction, we're expected to get in fiscal year 24 the construction money. And the project is located along Pembroke Road between Palm Avenue and Douglas, and it involves design of buffer bike lanes along both sides of Pembroke Road. And those of you that may not know, that segment of Pembroke Road is shared between Miramar and Pembroke Pines. So the north side is Pembroke Pines, the south side is Miramar. So there needs to be coordination between both municipalities, Pines and Miramar. And again, these will be these surtax projects are fairly new, so we're still learning a lot of the process and the requirement that needs to go through with these projects. But the county has the county encourages for you to register as a CBE vendor with the county, so you're able to get your hands on these projects that will be advertised not just by Miramar but by every other city that's getting funding through this program.
And before we go to the next slide, Sal, as we want the businesses to see, the county is encouraging, even though you see that no participation goal has been awarded, they strongly encourage certified CBE, SBE, small firms to seek inclusion. The reason that these projects those that have the smaller amounts are not afforded participation goals is because they have been identified as projects that are sizable for smaller businesses to be able to secure as a prime contractor, thereby not needing a participation goal to be added. And so the Broward County has that initiative that when the projects are identified as a sizable type project that a small business can secure as a prime, then those projects are not afforded, but we strongly encourage you to participate if, in fact, you meet the qualifications for any and all surtax projects that are released.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and the county has identified pretty much like $250,000. Anything less than $250,000, they will not assign a CBE goal. Thank you. So, and this, I think this is my last project that I have on my list. This is the Miramar Complete Streets Phase 3. And again, this is a federal grant that has the project has to be delivered again through the FDOT lab, the local agency program. The estimate, and this is just for design, is about $450,000. Construction cost is about 3.5, almost $4 million. And this project, we're just starting to, for those of you that are familiar, we just started the lab certification process for the city, which takes about a year to complete. So once we get lab certified for this project specific lab certified, we'll be able to advertise this project to SIG Design Services, who are anticipated in fiscal year 2024. The scope of work, it's mainly sidewalks, but there are other components to it. We also have some pedestrian lighting involved here, and obviously some earthwork to be able to accommodate the sidewalk. And this is this is located in the historic Miramar of the city, on the eastern side of the city. So it's along various streets between State Road and 62nd Avenue. Again, it's about almost 12,000 linear feet of sidewalk also. And this project, like obviously it's what we like to call like a neighborhood project, where you have to go through many homes, and there's many challenges that comes with design, because you have to work with almost every homeowner where you're building the sidewalk and accommodating and being able to construct the improvement without affecting every home. So this project, again, it's a lab project, and we will prefer to have a consultant that has experience with lab projects. I believe this is the last project on my list, and
Yes, Sal, and thank you so much.
I'm making good time, and we're gonna have the Q&A session at the end.
Yes, we are. And we want the businesses to know when you look at these various projects, it's important for you to understand the reason that the city engineer took the initiative to not just give the name of the project. And everyone gets excited about the dollar amounts of the projects. But one of the things that the disparity study said we as a city of Miramar can do a better job is doing is providing you as a small business with as much information in advance to position you to determine whether or not these are projects that you as a small business are able to secure primarily, hopefully, as a prime contractor. When you see the scope of work, that's great. Most solicitations have that information, but we're also providing, the city engineer is also providing you with the project location. Most recently, when working with Parks and Recs, the director says, we're giving you the location so that you as a business, you can travel along, you can take the initiative, you can literally go and do as much research as you can to ensure that you have a full understanding of what it is that the solicitation will be requiring of you to ensure that you could position yourself to be successful. More importantly, given this information in advance, allowing you to have a connection and introducing you to the city engineer. And then Daryl is the assistant city engineer. And these leaders is so that then once you go and travel along, once you take the initiative to go to review the site, and then you have questions before the solicitation is released, then you can ask the questions directly to the engineer once the consultant is brought on board. And you can get as much information as you as a small minority and or disadvantaged business will need to be able to position yourself to be successful in taking part and securing inclusion on these projects. And so when you see that the specific locations, we're telling you Miramar Parkway, we're telling you the areas, the exact locations of everything concerning the projects and what is being asked of these projects, the amounts. Don't just look at the titles and the amounts. Take the initiatives to see have you ever done new sidewalks and the initiatives and the things that are going to be required for the project. Once the solicitation is released, as you will know, the cone of silence goes in place. Salvador Zuniga or his team will no longer, nor Dr. Hollis or anyone at the city, will be able to speak with you other than the procurement department. Again, this information is being presented in advance to afford you an opportunity to review, consider, make informed decisions as to whether or not you as a firm meet the qualifications or have the expertise, and more importantly, allowing you time to develop teams where in which you can come and secure and partner with other firms if you don't meet all of the qualifications to be able to develop a team and then go after projects. That is why we're letting you know the anticipated project advertisements and giving you far enough notification for those that are going to be in the end of this quarter, those that are going to be in fiscal year 2023. We even have one here for fiscal year 2024, thereby giving you ample opportunity to position yourself as a small business to be able to develop a team, get to know prime contractors, get the qualifications that are needed to ensure that you can get yourself inclusion. So now, thank you very much again, Sal, for that amazing information. We also have on the line on this session, Mr. Daryl Johnson. He is the construction administrator. Now, the disparity study concluded that we as a city, unfortunately, the one area in which we did not do as well with the data that was reported to us with the study is in the construction area. And thereby, Mr. Daryl Johnson works with me diligently to try to foster and ensure more inclusion. I thank him so much every time for his continued support of the bid initiatives in which we're trying to diligently make sure that you have a full understanding of everything that the city is trying to do. Thank you again, Daryl Johnson, for joining us this morning. I know that you will be able to provide the businesses now with an overview of those city control funded design construction projects that you and your team manage. And once you finish giving the overview, I believe Mr. Johnson is going to talk about an upcoming design project that's going to be released from his department. Daryl, thank you so very much for joining us again. Take it away, sir.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, everyone. Just a few things to note, just to distinguish my department from Sal's department, which was what Sal just presented. One of the things I just want to state the obvious. Sal's projects are mainly civil in nature. Most of the construction is horizontal, whereas in my department, I deal strictly with vertical construction and renovation of city-owned facilities, capital improvements. So just a summary, strictly city-owned buildings. Whereas Sal's engineering group, they deal sometime with the private developers and also the commercial builders. I do not do that. Again, everything that my department constructs are internal, are city-owned facilities. Just wanted to just make that distinguish, make sure everyone understands that. And I think if you can go to the next slide. Yeah. And currently we have since this is a design symposium, um, currently we have a project that's going out for a solicitation for design services. The name of the project is the Historic Miramar Innovation and Technology Facility and Hub. It's the scope of work will include the design of approximately 20,000 square feet facilities. It's located on the city-owned property adjacent to the Vernon E. Hargrave complex. The interior scope would include reception area, business resource incubator space, art incubator space, training classroom, conference room facilities, labs, administrative offices, multi-purpose rooms, flexible open space, restrooms, and equipment areas. Again, it's a two-story structure that the city is looking to design, and this is located in the East Historic Miramar. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, the approximate budget value is between 800,000 to $1 million as far as with design services. And again, the city will be advertising for complete design services. And my suggestion, if any smaller design firms are interested in participating in this project, we will have for you a list of a of a city library that has design consultants that you could possibly partner with. If the scope of work is maybe too big for the smaller design firms, maybe you could reach out to some of those uh, design consulting architecture firms that will be bidding on this project. But maybe uh, Karen, we could probably introduce these smaller firms to these larger firms, and they could probably come up with some type of partnering agreement. Because city is, we're geared toward providing minority partners with the larger firms. Let's see. The next item is general description and background. The city of Miramar seeks qualified, yes, these consultants to provide design services to prepare detailed design documents, contract documents, permitting, and construction administration. Not construction management. That's a typo there. I should have saw that. Construction administration services. The city's proposed historic Miramar Innovation and Technology Facility and Hub. The successful consulting firm must have extensive experience working in South Florida with specific expertise in design and commercial buildings. Instead of saying commercial building, which this won't really be a commercial building. We're looking for someone who has experience in similar buildings, as I gave the description earlier of the type of building. Next slide, Karen. Let's see. These are the minimum qualifications that the city is looking for. Uh, Demonstrate a minimum of 5 years experience designing projects of similar size and scope, as I alluded to earlier. And again, Karen, if we can, we'll provide any smaller firms that are looking to possibly, if they don't have the 5 years experience, or they've never done this size scope of work, they could possibly partner with some of the firms in the city's library. The next is must be currently certified, licensed, and authorized to perform services in the state of Florida. Must be currently insured and satisfy insurance requirements applicable by law to perform the services with insurance certificates that state the name of the proposal. Again, these are general items that are required for most city projects. The next is submit a minimum of 3 references. Submit a minimum of 3 successful projects of similar size and scope, along with references, including current mailing address, telephone number, and email address. Again, these are just standard criteria for a project this size that the city's looking to solicit for design services. Slide.
That's it for you, Daryl.
Oh, okay. Again, just in summary, again, nice meeting everybody. This is just one project of many that we have in the future. But as of right now, this will be going out for advertisement. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of this WebEx. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And again, we are trying to position you as a smaller business and providing you with as much information as we can so that you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you meet the qualifications. One of the things that the study said that we need to do as a city is to provide you this information in advance. And we are proud here at the City of Miramar. with the initiatives and the systems that we have in place to ensure that not only are you given the basic overview of the projects, and again, smaller businesses, they get excited about the project names, they get excited about the dollar amounts. We need you, and we want to ensure that you have enough information about the actual scope. We need you to understand the general description in the background of what it is that the successful consulting firm must have in place to become what the procurement department will identify as a successful consulting firm that is able to secure a contracting opportunity. And so herein which is another way for us to showcase excerpts of a procurement solicitation for a design project. Again, we're trying to position you to have as much information as you will need so that you as a small business will then be able to, and I will be speaking with my colleagues if we will make the adjustments requested, but provide you with a copy of this presentation that we have here today so that you can have the information again, and you can do those things. Now, Mr. Johnson referred to as the city's library, and I'm so excited that he did. For those of you that do not know, remember I told you, bid in the city of Miramar as a whole, procurement department included, are consistently and constantly trying to implement systems and services that are going to ensure more inclusion for smaller businesses. One tool that the procurement department has created to that end are libraries. What does that mean? There is a solicitation that goes out where in which the City of Miramar Procurement Department, and they do it for departments at large. Salvador, the city engineer, spoke a little bit and talked about they have a library. And so there's an engineering library. What does that mean? A solicitation was released from the City of the Procurement Department, and that procurement was requesting qualified firms in the architectural and engineering industry and trade to respond to the solicitation, notifying them that the city is desiring to gather a collection of firms that can then be entered into what we're calling a library. And that means those firms, those solicitations go out. The solicitation, once the businesses, they usually can range between 10, 15, 20 firms, depending on all of those firms that respond and meet the qualifications of the solicitation. It goes through a full solicitation process. Those successful firms, which in libraries are more than one by design, then those libraries are brought on board. Most of those solicitations can have anywhere from a 1 year or 2 year or 3 year commitment from the city of Miramar. What does that mean? That firm will have engaged in one solicitation process, will then be placed on a library or a roster or a list of available firms. Let's say it's a library for engineering, a list. Sal and his team will have a list of qualified, ready, willing, and able architectural and engineering firms that have already been successfully procured and then are available at any time for any department within the city that are doing design projects can then go to that design or architectural or engineering library and utilize those firms. Even though it's just an engineering department that requested the solicitation and prompted the procurement department to release and secure the library, libraries are available for the entire citywide, any and all individuals that are looking to purchase and or procure services in the area. And there's a firm in any of our libraries, we can use, those firms can be used until the library expires. Again, libraries have, some of the libraries that have been implemented by the procurement department have had up to 3-year life terms, which means this is a way for you as a small business. The study was clear. The disparity study said one of the areas where in which small businesses continue to fall short and do not have and cannot competitively continue to compete with the larger and prime contractors is in the area of procurement solicitations and being awarded and successfully meeting all of the criteria to be successfully secured in procurements. One tool that procurement and the city of Miramar and city leaders have implemented to ensure more small business inclusion is the development of libraries. This system allows firms that are coming in for a myriad. Remember, the projects haven't been identified for the most part. We're just looking for specific qualifications. Are you bondable? Do you have insurance? Because not everything is a barrier. Insurance is not a barrier. Now, we make adjustments and we identify whether or not the amounts that are being requested are affordable and not being a barrier in terms of requirements that are needed for the project. But the requirement of insurance itself is not a barrier. And bonding. So if you have bonding, if you have insurance, if you have the experience, if you meet the qualifications that the library solicitation requires and have requested, then you will have an opportunity to be joining a library. And all of these upcoming projects, you heard it from the city engineer, they will be exploring the library. You heard it from the city's construction contract administrator. He can then, and we constantly confirm and encourage businesses that are already in the library to then collect themselves, organize themselves, they can develop themselves partnerships and then go after solicitations. Why is this critical? Because they've already proven to the city that they are ready, willing, able, and qualified firms. That is a hurdle and a level of a hurdle that most smaller businesses and minority businesses have difficulty and challenges in moving forward on. So the library, once you're in there, and I thank you so much, Daryl, we'll definitely meet more and talk about encouraging those library firms to partner together to see if they can then, even though you're in the library, you can then respond as a team to other procurement solicitations. So we're again just trying to give you all the information, helping you to see when a solicitation is released. This is the type of language that you're going to be seeing in the procurement solicitations. We want to make sure that you haven't seen this language for the first time when you get the solicitation, because again, there's a timeline in place. When you have to, in the solicitation say you have to return the solicitation by June 30th at 2 p.m., when and if that solicitation response is returned 201 or 210, we've had firms come back and go to city leadership saying that's a barrier. No, we have a fair, open process. There are guidelines that are in place to ensure the efficacy of the procurement process. That cannot be compromised, and those are not barriers. So what we're doing here is giving you an opportunity to explore the information in advance, become familiar with the information in advance, thereby placing you in a better position so that when the timeline is released, you are not reading the information for the first time, thereby believing in the information that we've been given through the study, that these are tools that will position you to be more successful and place you on a more level playing field as it relates to your other competitors that may be going after these types of solicitations as well. Thank you again, Daryl. Thank you again, Sal. Excellent information. So what you see we're trying to do with this design symposium is giving you a complete panorama of design initiatives. You've heard from the internal aspect of Daryl. He only works with city funded projects. You've heard from the city engineer, Mr. Salvador Zuniga. He works with FDOT projects. He's working with SureTax projects. A lot of our, here we go again, I talked about the collaboration with community stakeholders as it related to bid early on. Again, we have community stakeholders that we've entered into agreements with that you heard from the city engineer in terms of partnering to release projects, partnering to ensure more inclusion, partnering to ensure that we're providing a viable economic impact for smaller minority and disadvantaged businesses to participate on a myriad of projects. But this symposium, we're only focusing on design, but rest and assured, those same community stakeholders are working with us in a lot of different ways on all types of other contracts that you heard Daryl speak about in terms of construction. So now the next segment, if you remember the agenda, we have the city internal process. I wanted you to know a little bit about that. But more importantly, you heard just nuggets throughout about P3, public-private partnerships. What does that mean? How does that work? We have with us Mr. Timothy Wheat, which is the with Pinnacle, and Mr. Wheat is an individual that understands fully about public-private partnerships. He is a private business initiative. He is going to be going over and an expert, a design expert. We definitely remember what did. We aligned you, we presented you experts, industry experts that can help you as a small business grow your business. Well, Dr. Hollis, I'm limited in the information that I can give you with skill building and construction and design and engineering. So I bring the experts on board with these webinars from city engineers and constructions. Daryl actually owns a construction company, industry expert that can afford you additional information so that you can position yourself to grow. So, Mr. Timothy Wheat, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Please, sir, please, 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 I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm so happy I was able to do that without Paul having to give me a nice little hint in chat. I would encourage all of you firms, if you have any questions for either Salvador and Zuniga, Daryl Johnson, please put your questions in the chat so that they can review those questions now and be prepared to answer those questions at the end in the Q&A, or we can have an opportunity at that time for you to submit. But we definitely want to hear back from you, and we want to make sure we answer all of your questions, and we can re-review any of the information that's already been presented. So, Mr. Wheat, thank you for your patience with us, sir. And we now are excited to hear the information that you've come to present to the firms so that they can have a better understanding from the private side. So we presented all of the government side. So now we're going to allow Mr. Wheat, which is from the private side of the design industry, to give you more information. Mr. Wheat, thank you again. Take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Hollis, and thanks everyone at the city and those attending. Can you hear me okay? Good, and you can see my screen. So we're off to a good start. Design expert, I don't know that I would call myself that, but a little bit of background about myself and our involvement with the city of Miramar. And then we'll dive into what is a kind of a technical proposal, because as Dr. Hollis said, we want to educate people and educate firms so they can become qualified to do this kind of work. So my background is in affordable housing, and I've had 35 years of experience in public and nonprofit and then private sector. I've been with Pinnacle and the Pinnacle family of companies for 20 years, and we've developed together 10,000 units of affordable multifamily housing and luxury housing as well throughout Florida, Texas, and Mississippi. Myself, I've overseen the development of about 27 communities, totaling about 2,800 units from the Panhandle of Northern Florida all the way down to Southern Broward County. We are engaged with the city of Miramar as a result of a P3, or public-private partnership selection, to develop 110 senior housing units on Miramar Parkway and Douglas Road on city-owned property that we made an unsolicited public-private partnership proposal to the city, I believe, back in 2018. We then told the city that we were going to finance that, leveraging the multifamily resources from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, which allocates tax credits, which are the key vehicle to financing multifamily affordable housing. So that's the story of how we have come to be and work with our friends at the city of Miramar. And after 3 tries of securing these incredibly hyper-competitive tax credits, we were awarded an allocation last year, and we've begun our work on the design and development process this year, us and our development team. We have a fully formed team of professionals that we brought as part of our P3 proposal. And so when I met with Dr. Hollis, she said, okay, you're a fully formed team, but teach others that want to do business with the city how to become a team member. So I'm going to walk you through it, really highly technical, as much, and I apologize if at times it's too technical, about what the design requirements are for affordable multifamily housing that's financed by the State Housing Finance Corporation or financed using these federal tax credits, otherwise referred to as the low-income housing tax credit, which is what we're using in Miramar. So let's jump into that. Okay, so just a brief overview. We talked a little bit about how we're going to focus today in my little discussion about using the housing tax credit for and other Florida Housing Finance Corp sponsored programs such as sale loans, and they've done things like rental recovery loan programs, and then they have a variety of special targeted programs targeting special needs populations, whether it be homeless or behavioral risk populations, and or rural housing, which is not an issue in Miramar, but in other parts of the state. So all of these programs are competitive, and Florida's allocation is on a per capita basis. So I believe the projected allocation of tax credits for 2022 was around 57.5 million. So when you syndicate that and raise actual equity investment, that means about $500 million is raised to finance affordable housing all throughout the state, tens of thousands of units a year. And applicants, development companies such as Pinnacle have to follow certain rules and regulations about what the project or development should be. So that's when our relationship with our designers are very important. So there are a lot of defined terms in the application process, and then once you're awarded, how the development comes to be and what the final plans and product look like. So there are a few defined terms I just wanted to kind of go over here that are important. I'm going to show you the definitions of development category and development type, which are going to be very important when I get to the end of my presentation in terms of what, for example, and I'm kind of focusing a little bit on the architect qualifications because Florida Housing has some very specific requirements for architects. But I'm also reviewing overall design requirements today that'll matter for those of you who maybe are civil engineers or land planners or landscape architects or green building consultants, because all of these disciplines come into play in doing an affordable housing community that's sponsored or allocated tax credits or other resources by the State Housing Finance Corporation. So development category, you'll see what that means momentarily. As with development type, I'm throwing out a few terms that matter to Florida housing. One is called enhanced structural systems, which are, they determine what your cost limits would be based on certain types of design, certain development types. Enhanced structural systems basically mean a multi-story development that goes above 3 floors with a concrete, at least some sort of concrete podium. That's an enhanced structural system. It could have frame construction above, as we see very often in Central Florida and North Florida, or it could be an entire concrete structure, and that could be a number of different designs, post-tension, conventional, tunnel form, all of those things they consider to be enhanced structural systems. Generally, the large allocations of tax credits in their mainline, what they call geographic allocations for Broward County, have a minimum number of units of 75 units. Some of their more specialized allocations or special needs type housings will be smaller, but this, again, the number of units is important when we talk later about the qualifications for a firm to seek this kind of business and to partner with a developer. Accessibility requirements are incredibly important. I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to talk about green features and the required green certification that has to be done by a separate green rater or green certifier aside from the architect or engineer. And you're allowed to choose between one of three green certification pathways: the U.S. Green Building Council, or LEED, the Florida Green Building Coalition, or what's called the National Green Building Standard, or otherwise known as ICC 700. So developers have to choose one of those three pathways and work with their design team and obtain those at least minimum certifications. I could tell you that the NGBS and FGBC pathways have generally become the most popular pathways. They're the most cost efficient. LEED has some, it has a lot of prestige and a lot of cachet, but it's also very expensive, very prescriptive, and there are some things that really don't work well in South Florida. I can dive into that if anyone has some questions about that, but we have found that NGBS or FGBC work really well on affordable housing communities. Most of our developments are silver or better. All right, so development categories apply to there's three main categories: new construction, ground up, which could include demolition and rebuilding; rehabilitation, which means acquiring and rehabbing an existing complex; or redevelopment, which could involve a combination of new construction, rehabilitation, but also comes with a component of ongoing operating subsidy that might come from a public housing authority that you're preserving that sort of component and preserving it long term. So the various development types, typically garden apartments, 1, 2, and 3 stories with or without an elevator; townhouses, a standard townhouse, an interior unit with interior stairwell; duplexes, quadruplexes, mid-rise 4 stories. Each residential building must have an elevator; a mid-rise of 5 to 6 stories; and then high-rise, which is a building comprised of 7 or more stories. So popular development types that we see in urban locations, or what we in Miami-Dade has its own application round, and then Broward County is lumped together with what's called the 6 large county geographic allocation rounds for the biggest portion of housing tax credits that get allocated. The most popular designs we see are mid-rise, high-rise, and garden apartments. In the past, we saw more work done in townhouses, duplexes, and quadruplexes, but cost efficiencies have really, and land scarcity have really limited those opportunities for affordable housing development, all development in general, but as it pertains to multifamily. I apologize, my screen has frozen. There we go. Okay, accessibility requirements. I mentioned these as like the cornerstone of what both Florida Housing wants to see in developments, but also an important cornerstone for the linkage between the federal allocation of tax credits and also also local regulations and state regulations. We have to keep in mind that in working on an affordable multifamily development, you may have a client who's utilizing these housing tax credits from Florida Housing, but may also be utilizing some other federal or state funding sources from either a county or a city, what we call gap financing. That also will come with these requirements. So the 4, the legs of the 4 stools is the Florida Accessibility Code for construction. Your building official in Miramar and elsewhere would be looking for those. And the Fair Housing Act that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and in apartments, that requires that 5% of the units be handicapped accessible, and there are certain fair housing design requirements. There's also Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and that kind of folds into now with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And Section 504 looks to see that all units on an accessible route, and that is defined as all units that can be accessed by a disabled person. So it's the ground floor of all units that have walk-up access, and any units that are accessed by an elevator. It's all units in that building. So these the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act focuses on a certain level of accessibility in all units, and there are some enhanced features in the 5% units that are required under fair housing that pertain to 504. So sometimes people think that they've designed the Fair Housing Act, that they've satisfied 504, and that's not the case. Now, I would not be the person to ask for a detailed list of all the things that are required there. I just know that some of those things in terms of parallel approaches, bathroom turnarounds, kitchen accessibility, some of these things in 504 are more stringent, and you need to be watchful of those. And then, of course, Titles 2 and 3 of the ADA, and a lot of those apply to your common areas and common area facilities and amenity areas and developments, both indoors and outdoors, in terms of handicap parking accessibility relative to the buildings, ramps to access amenity areas, and complying with those standard ADA requirements that could apply to any commercial enterprise. So moving on to the next slide. Again, I seem to be having a bit of a glitch here. There we go. All right, accessibility improvements above and beyond the code. Florida Housing has these specific requirements that they felt that they needed to articulate more clearly beyond the four-legged stool of the code requirements I went over here. And they're fairly self-explanatory. The primary entrance doors can't have a threshold no more than a half-inch rise. They'll have an inspector come out during construction and measure those. I've had to rip out thresholds and replace them, in projects that were, an eighth of an inch too high. So all door handles must be lever action, and lever handles on all bathroom faucets and kitchen sink faucets. The midpoint on light switches and thermostats shall be no more than 48 inches above finished floor level. And cabinet drawer handles have to be operable with a D-pull type. So, someone can grab them with a single closed fist and open them more easily and readily, especially if they have grip issues. So those are some of the things that they specifically articulate as part of their regulations. And with green features, I'm not going to go over every single one of these, as time does not permit that this morning. But these are, in addition to the green building certification process, the things that a Florida Housing financed development needs to do or provide. And they really fall along low flow water fixtures, low or no VOC paint for interior walls, the low flow fixtures. It's if they're water sense labeled, great. If not, they have to follow these specific requirements. Energy Star equipment for refrigerator, dishwasher, ventilation fans, water heater minimum requirements depending on your energy source. Typically, most folks were doing the 0.95 energy factor or 0.92 UEF, residential electric ones. So, but there are, variations in terms of some folks that use gas. 15 SEER or better for your typical split system air conditioning. And then there's some alternates if you're using a chiller system or package equipment. But, their goal is to impose some certain energy efficiency requirements. Many of those, vast majority of those are going to catch up to code, uh, you know, uh, and you're going to wind up doing anyway, in terms of wanting to make your green building certification. So these sort of work hand in hand, but sometimes your architect might miss a specification for one of these requirements. So what we try to do as a team, because you might do 10 and you missed one, it's, even though you're getting a green building certification, Florida Housing is going to make you rectify it. Did a project 4 years ago in Tallahassee. Had to take out all the ventilation fans and all the bathrooms and replace them with Energy Star because the architect missed that specification. The contractor missed that specification, even though we went over this checklist before construction, during construction, still happens. So it's good to be educated on these things. As we all know, the construction and development process is dynamic, and we're tracking a million different priorities at once, and these are important. So if they get missed, they won't be missed by the inspector that's specifically looking for this list. So just keep that in mind. So, wanted to talk a little bit about what an architect is asked to do, in terms of following Florida Housing's experience requirements. And I'm going to refer you back to the discussion we had about development category and development type, because that's really going to help. But if a development is awarded financing by Florida Housing then turns around and says to the developer, I really need you to provide proof that your team is qualified based on all our qualification standards to work on the development. So we then come to you, and that not only qualified, but you have a general understanding of the requirements for a development as an architect of record. So then we come to you as the architect and say, we need you to sign this form, and we include it in a package of all the qualifications and all this information that's required to start the preliminary allocation process of those tax credits. So these are the elements of the form as it stands today, and the form always changes from year to year. They'll make some subtle changes, but the core elements of it have not changed. I refer you to item 2 in particular, that you're going to certify that you have experience with more than one previous development. Okay, the meaning more than one means at least 2 of similar development category and development type. So back to those terms. So if I have told Florida Housing that I am doing a high rise, as they define it, 7 stories or more, and it's a new construction development, obviously, then the architect I pick has to have had experience with at least 2 buildings, 7 stories or higher. Okay. If the architect I choose has experience with 2 garden apartment complexes, they do not meet the experience requirement. So that could be problematic, and I may have to go to another architectural firm, or maybe that architect will have to partner with a firm that has that requisite experience. So it's important to, if you're invited as a designer, invited to participate as an architect with an affordable housing developer, you will want to know what your design program is, and you'll want to check with your client to see what the regulations that are applicable to that particular request for applications, as they call it, or request for proposal process, as you can see in paragraph 1. It's very important. You don't want to wind up doing all this work and then the client comes to you and says, sign this form. You say, I can't sign this. I can't certify to this. And then, everyone's in a pickle. So then you have to certify certain things about the designs, plans, and specifications. And we went over a lot of the general features and amenities, not so much, because some of those are pretty obvious. I could have walked you through what the most recent ones are. For example, you have to certify that, there'll be a jack for cable television or a phone in every unit, or that 2 bedrooms or larger will have at least 2 bathrooms. Things of that nature that are kind of second nature, but you'll have to certify those. So there's some very basic design standards that are sort of consistent with everyone's industry standards today, and I didn't want to go through those in the interest of time. Required universal design and visitability features. Those pertain to accessibility. We went over their 4 specific requirements and some of their code requirements. So, and if you're in a rehabilitation project, as they mentioned in item C, you have to do what is deemed reasonable based on the rehabilitation scope of work. So, and they work with you to figure out what is reasonable, because some things are just not practical in rehabilitation. So you have to allow for inclusion of optional features and amenities. So if we as the client have checked any specific boxes that said we're going to provide certain types of amenities, you need to make sure they're incorporated within your design. And then there are a whole specific suite of design criteria for elderly housing, which we are following for our P3 development, Pinnacle at La Cabana. If you have to follow those, if you're doing an elderly project, you have to certify that you're doing those specific things, like providing a certain percentage of roll-in showers and things of that nature, and making sure that all the units have grab bars. So, and then you're also certifying that you're complying with those 4, regulatory items with respect to accessibility and fair housing and state requirements. And then you're agreeing to enter into good faith negotiations or participate in a bidding process with the applicant to act as architect for the proposed development. So, and then you sign. So those are the rules for, that's a small snapshot, and I apologize for deep diving in some of those technical issues. Like I said, there's a lot more I could discuss that are specific to particularly elderly housing. I just did want to also mention that you're going to be part of a team if you work on a Florida Housing Finance development. And in addition to meeting their requirements, you're going to be expected to meet requirements for the investor that purchases these tax credits, which are typically large institutions and sometimes banks. Like, for example, we work extensively with Bank of America and Citibank and Wells Fargo, and these institutions purchase these tax credits and also provide financing. And they have some very specific insurance requirements. So you're going to want to check with your insurance carrier. Your CGL is probably going to need to be 1 million per occurrence, 2 million combined. Professional liability, at least 1 million of professional liability, are generally the standards we typically see on insurance. So I'm going to take the last couple of minutes to transition to talking about the P3 or public-private partnership regulations. A number of years ago, the state legislature opened up the possibility of private entities making public proposals on publicly owned lands in particular, which that led to us developing a senior community in Hollywood called Pinnacle at Peacefield, and where we made an unsolicited proposal to the city, and they ultimately selected us to develop 120 units of senior housing. And then that led to us making a similar proposal to the city of Miramar, which led to Pinnacle at La Cabana, which we're currently in the process of developing. So the reference is section 287.05712 of Florida statutes that guides public-private partnerships. And In short, under this P3 statute, a private entity may submit an unsolicited proposal to a government entity provided that such proposal serves a public purpose. When the proposal is unsolicited, it must contain the following information. Hello. Okay. Project description. I apologize. This, interface with WebEx and my PowerPoint is a little clunky, so apologize for delays. So you would write a letter to the city saying, hey, I want to provide an unsolicited proposal. And here's what I propose to do. And I come up with a concept and a proposed schedule. Since we're talking about publicly owned land, I would articulate to the city how their interests will be secured and how we would secure our interests and how the city's interests would be preserved and how the development would be viable and how it would be financed. And, basically user fees, lease payment, or service payments. In short, making a business proposal to the city. Okay. So the who, what, where, when, and how is what basically you articulate in a P3 proposal, but you definitely need to call out the four legs of this stool in any kind of unsolicited proposal. So then, if the government receives it and determines that it complies with Florida statutes and that they have a procurement policy that allows them to operate under Section 287 of the Florida statutes, as Miramar clearly does, the government entity must publish notice of our proposal once a week for 2 weeks, whereby it'll accept other proposals for 21 days. So it's not like I'll make an unsolicited proposal and then that means you instantly hire me. No, you've kicked off competition. So so then they're compelled to advertise it and give other firms an opportunity to respond. Then thereafter, typically in concert or consistent with a procurement strategy the city may have adopted, they'll rank proposals and enter into a negotiating process with the top ranked proposal. Clearly, you're hoping that it would be you because you've had an opportunity to set forth a vision, and you're clearly, if you have made a P3 presentation, it's probably not something you've thought of whimsically. It's something that's in your area of expertise and you have a great deal of knowledge about. Just like we did at Pinnacle when we proposed to the city of Miramar. We had experience with a P3, experience with affordable housing, experience with elderly housing, experience in creating public-private partnerships with governmental entities, whether they be cities or public housing authorities. Like we had done that for a very long time. So, picking your strategic opportunity is of vital importance. And that concludes my presentation. I'll look forward to any questions that anyone has, and I appreciate your indulgence, and thank you for your time today.
Excellent, Mr. Weed. Thank you so very much for that critical information. Again, as you know, one of the most important component of bid and these initiative programs, minority programs, is to position small businesses to grow and to scale up. And the way in which we do that is to allow them information, critical information, skill building information that they can then use and make available and process in terms of how they move forward in growing their business. So I have to ask, because I speak for the businesses first, is it possible for us, because I'm going to work with the city engineers to develop our PowerPoint presentation so that we can make available to them? And I would ask, if not that exact presentation, if you can provide something where in which I can provide to them, especially those things like that green featured checklist.
Oh, sure.
Businesses, I hope you were watching. He gave you a literal checklist. That is what today's symposium is about. Tools and tips you can take away and strategies that you can move forward with information that will allow you to strategically grow your business. information you can implement, things you may or may not have, and tools you may not have had in your toolbox before today. So if you can, Mr. Reed, I will find out, and you don't have to answer on here, but provide me with a copy of the presentation that I can
Oh,
make available.
by all means, and I emailed it to you yesterday, so I'm sure you were super busy preparing. So
Yes.
you have it, and you're certainly welcome to post it or share it.
Excellent, excellent. Because we want them to have those checklists in place. We want to ensure that our smaller businesses, when, like you said, are developing teams, they know the questions to ask, which many may not know, to ensure that application you said, to make sure that the person they're seeking to partner with have the required certifications that are going to be in place. Because as you heard with him, and thank you for your transparency, sir, and being able to communicate that there were projects that you worked on. This is Pinnacle. This is a prime contractor that's been doing this, what did you say, over 20 years, right, Mr. Wheat?
Well, we've been around as a company for over 25 years. I've been with Pinnacle for 20, and we've built 70 some odd projects. And yeah, we still screw things up.
I wouldn't use that term.
Trust me.
But there are
You know,
some
it's just
projects that come with challenges, even for the prime contractors. And so when those things happen, as you heard him say, when the housing authority came in with their checklist, they found that of those 15 items that were listed, one of which was not. What did Mr. Wheat say they had to go back and do? Fix it. What does fixing projects equate to? Cash money loss. We want to position you to be able to, as you're developing teams, as you're positioning to scale up in the design arena, to have enough information to ensure that as you, as a small minority and disadvantaged business that may not have, or definitely not, cannot afford such a costly challenge on any project. So at the end of the day, we want to give you this information, and it was important for us to give any information to help you ensure that you have an ability to position yourself to succeed. Paul, I don't see any questions in the chat room. That's probably a good idea because that means that the gentlemen have done a great job. But we want you, any and all firms that are on board, the time has come for us to engage with you. If you have any specific questions, if you have it from Mr. Sal Zuniga, please indicate the individual that you are asking the question, or you would like to answer the question, and your question itself, and we will allow that individual an opportunity to respond. Those, we believe it or not, we conclude webinars with businesses that prefer. I'm sorry, Dr. Hollis, I did not want to ask the questions while the program was being recorded, and we received questions thereafter. We still will forward those questions to the parties, but the time has been allotted now for us to answer any questions that you may have. And I don't see any, and to me, again, that means Mr. Wheat, Sal, and Daryl, you did an excellent job. Thank you all so very much. In terms of the information that was presented today, you don't have to worry about questions of either asking them to repeat the information, because both I will be working with the internal team to ensure that we develop a PDF that we can forward to you, thanking you first for taking time out of your busy schedules to understand the importance of securing this type of information and its value and the benefits that can be added for you to grow your business, and to ensure that you have additional information on what you can do to position yourself to be able to do business with the city of Miramar. I respect your time, and although we've allotted enough time until noon, we do not extend webinars to meet any time spectrum. We just try to ensure that we afford our presenters enough time to clearly, accurately, and succinctly present all of the information that is necessary to equip you as a business to grow. Once that is done successfully, as has been done today, we conclude by thanking you for taking the time out for joining this webinar today. Thank you, Sal. Thank you again, Daryl. Thank you for all of our community partners and internal directors that are on board. Thank you, businesses. We at the Business Inclusion and Diversity System, we remain here. We are available. Will continue to develop program systems, webinars, skill building, tech webinars, and everything that we have been communicated and we believe can best help you grow your business. This will conclude today's session. We will be following up with you. We will also be providing you with information on how you can participate in other upcoming bid initiatives, programs, conferences, webinars, contractor job fairs. And thank you, Mr. Weed, again for the valuable information that we join. We continue to look forward to having you work with us. You all will be able to see him again at our construction contractor fair that's going to be held in August, where you can actually come to a table and get to know Mr. Wheat, shake his hand, have information. He and his team will be there on any construction and any contracting opportunities that will may become available with the project that he has here at the city. Until then, please continue to be safe, and we thank you again for joining this afternoon session. That concludes the webinar. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.